Several obstacles and many delays. One of the world's largest artificial reefs is now open to divers.
The retired Navy ship, the Spegiel Grove, is now on the ocean floor off Key Largo, and today, Todd Tongan dove in for an underwater tour.
Well, here's champagne in your eye. The world's largest artificial reef is ready to dive. The 510-foot former Navy ship got a visit from a plethora of press people today, along with members of Key Largo's Chamber of Commerce. And in typical Spegiel Grove fashion, nothing came easy. Not even an underwater christening. As you recall, the infamous ship sank early, went turtle down, and then was rolled on its side by a salvage crew.
Oh, look at that, an airbag just went.
It took well over $1 million to get the ship in place, but chamber officials say it's money well spent.
It is absolutely money well spent. First of all, we anticipate that this will bring a minimum of 50,000 divers a year to the Key Largo area, and that will bring into the community approximately $14 million more annually.
Today's visibility wasn't great, but it wasn't bad, about 30 to 40 feet. And there was definitely a current running over the ship, but it died down once we got on the wreck. The Spegiel Grove hasn't been down long, but you could clearly see its transformation from ship to reef. It was covered with algae, and there was plenty of bait fish about. I was down for only 20 minutes and saw just a small portion of the ship. For people in the dive industry like Mike Carter of Divers Direct, bigger is definitely better.
The ship is so big. I mean, just to say you dove the Spegiel Grove doesn't really mean that you dove the whole Spegiel Grove.
It'd be like saying you visited New York City. You've only done one dive on something that you could do a lot of.
How many dives could you do?
20, 30, I don't know. I have got to go out there and start counting.
Okay.
On the Spegiel Grove in Key Largo with photographer John Oliva, Todd Tongan, Channel 10 News.
Mooring buoys are in place, and the Spegiel Grove is now open to the public for diving. The Key Largo Chamber of Commerce is also trying to raise some money to pay for the attraction and to maintain it by selling souvenir dive medallions for $250 or lesser expensive $10 dive tags. And all the money goes to the Upper Keys Artificial Reef Fund.
Be interesting for divers to
It was a long project, but now it's open to the public for divers to appreciate.
enjoy. Yeah. Our top stories are next.
After 8 years of planning, a few failed attempts, and millions in recovery efforts, the retired Navy ship Spegiel Grove is finally open to the public. NBC6 chief photographer, who's also a diver and a fisherman, Mike Zimmer, has spent the past 20 years diving off the waters of South Florida, and today he takes us down under, if you will, for his look at the historic reef.
The day has finally come for the Spegiel Grove. It took nearly 8 years to make this happen. The world's largest intentionally sunk artificial reef, just 6 miles off Key Largo, was open for business.
I think it'll probably be the most popular destination in South Florida for some years to come. We anticipate people coming from all over the world.
This former naval transport ship is an awesome sight. This video just can't show you how incredibly large it is. It's nearly 2 football fields in length, 510 feet. The highest point comes to about 50 feet from the surface, all the way down to 130 feet to the bottom. So because it's fairly deep, it makes this a bit on the advanced side.
It's a dive that requires a little bit of planning. It's a dive that requires you to follow your plan, and it's going to be spectacular.
My dive was one of the first to the site. You could see the bow, giant chains, huge structures mounted to the ship's deck. And I have to tell you, I was awed by the sheer size of the ship. The wreck is so large, it'll take at least 3 separate dives to cover the entire ship, and maybe more.
The size of the ship is so huge that it just kind of boggles the mind when you get on it to realize that you could probably dive it every day for 6 months and never really get to see the whole thing.
What makes this dive unique is that during the next few years, coral and other marine life will start to grow and change its environmental makeup.
The soft corals are already starting to grow on it. They will become more and more abundant, and then as time goes by here, the hard corals will start growing on it, and with that comes a different ecosystem that is attached with those corals. So it's going to be very, very interesting.
The Spegiel Grove is already the best-known artificial reef in the world, and probably even more before the first diver ever came to look. In Key Largo, Mike Zimmer, NBC6.
Is that the coolest? The Spegiel Grove has become the world's largest artificial reef, the world's largest. Divers from around the world are expected to visit the underwater wonder. And speaking of whom, joining us now with more on what it means for our environment in South Florida is diving instructor Mike Carter. Welcome, Mike.
Thank you very much, Kelly.
You dove that yesterday, huh?
Yeah, I was really lucky. I got to dive it twice yesterday. It was great. I can't get enough of it.
And you were saying you can't believe how many fish are already there.
It's amazing. Fish everywhere. Little fish, big fish, all kinds of fish.
And then the coral is starting. Oh, that's so good.
Yeah, it's really needed. It's a great ecological, thing. It's going to be another environment
that's
right
wonderful.
there off the Keys.
I want to show something right now. Showed at the beginning. And we're going to backtrack a little bit and give you some history of the Spegiel Grove. But first, tell us what this is exactly.
That is the Upper Keys Artificial Reef Association medallion coin. And this is a limited supply. There's 1,000 of them. And this is how we're raising money to pay off the $1.25 million it took to sink the Spegiel Grove.
Now, how much of that was like whoops money when the thing didn't go well?
That's true. There was $250,000 that we had to use. We were lucky enough to secure some more loans and some generosity that helped us turn her over to help us improve the dive site.
Right. Now tell us exactly, 8 years in the making, who came up with the idea, how did it happen, etc.?
Well, any diver would tell you that it's something exciting to do, but the local charter boats and Stephen Frank, Captain Spencer Splate, Doc from Ocean Divers, those guys all really put the big effort into it and worked with the Chamber of Commerce.
Mm-hmm. And as we all know, a couple of months ago, it didn't go, it went down too fast and the wrong way, didn't it?
Yeah, it sure did. That was a surprise.
Right. And so in order to right it, they had to go back and spend, like you said, $250,000. What about the divers now? Will they be able to go down there for free, or what does this medallion entail?
Well, a lot of the charter boats are going to really insist that divers are going to have some of the medallion, the coins. Basically, as you dive it, this is common in Bonaire and other reefs, that it's a donation that you basically make. But usually to go on the boat, you need the donation. Obviously, if you're a private boater, you can drive your boat anywhere you want to. It's a free ocean.
Right, but it's just a nice thing to do. And the medallion sort of gives you a lifetime pass, doesn't it?
This one is the $250 lifetime pass. There's a $10 annual pass.
Mm-hmm. You know, as I'm looking at this, I did learn a little bit about diving while I never got certified, and I've been darning myself ever since. But I wonder, will you be able to use gloves on this reef?
This is a wreck, and sometimes people do use gloves going up and down the wreck because there's metal. But really, divers, don't touch anything and just kind of hover. That's one of the beauties of diving. You're neutrally buoyant, so it's a really neat experience. It's close as you can get to be in space.
How far down is it, Mike?
The shipwreck starts at about 50 feet, and the sand is at about 130. So divers of like an intermediate or really a beginning level can experience the top of the shipwreck.
And isn't it true that the shallower it is, the more beautiful the fish?
I think that's a little bit true. Obviously, you have more light, and there's more tropical fish in shallower waters.
Are you surprised at how fast that the reef has started to grow on that thing?
I'm really surprised by that. It's incredible. There's already soft corals starting there, bait fish. Like I said, lots of big fish. It's going to be an amazing environment.
Well, that's wonderful. And somebody really kind of put a positive spin on the whole disaster part of it, that the publicity that it garnered all over the world is really going to pay off in terms of now everybody knows about it. It's that ship that just didn't go down properly the first time.
Yeah, that's right. And we're going to see a lot more tourists, I think, coming to the Florida Keys again to dive an exciting new wreck.
Super. Mike, thanks for coming today and telling us about all this. And if you'd like more information on the Spegiel Grove, log on to our website at NBC6.net. We'll tell you how to get one of these fancy-dancy medallions or one of the coins.
All right.